Throughout history, power has done more than just elevate individuals. It has often seemed to absolve them of moral or legal failings. Machiavelli famously wrote in The Prince that people focus on results more than methods. Meanwhile, the phrase "history is written by the victors" suggests that when someone attains enough influence, the record of their past can be recast or even forgotten. Today we'll explore how this phenomenon appears in modern times, focusing on two high-profile figures, Donald Trump and Roman Abramovich. Alongside historical parallels, their stories illustrate how becoming powerful can, in many eyes, overshadow or even forgive one's earlier controversies. Before we discuss Trump and Abramovich, let's establish some background on how power can alter perceptions. Historically, victorious leaders, like successful revolutionaries or conquerors, often reframed rebellion or aggression as acts of liberation or necessity. People who fail in similar attempts tend to be punished, while those who succeed can be celebrated. Fidel Castro, for instance, famously declared, "History will absolve me" after an unsuccessful uprising in Cuba. He believed that if he eventually gained power, the public narrative would shift. Indeed, after establishing authority in 1959, many supporters viewed his actions as justified, even if critics disagreed. World War II saw the Axis leaders tried at Nuremberg for crimes against humanity, an important step for justice. Yet critics sometimes refer to these proceedings as an example of victor's justice, since the Allied powers were not similarly scrutinized for strategies like aerial bombings of civilian areas. By shaping the post-war world, the Allies also controlled the dominant narratives about right and wrong. These examples set the stage for understanding how, in more contemporary settings, wealthy or influential individuals can attract a loyal following, or at least enough support, to overshadow their pasts. Let's see how this plays out with two modern figures, Donald Trump and Roman Abramovich. Donald Trump's rise in New York City during the 1970s and 1980s showcased how media-savvy and aggressive legal tactics can buffer a person from lasting reputational damage. Allegations of questionable business practices surfaced early on, including racial discrimination lawsuits over his family's rental properties. In the 1970s, the U.S. Justice Department filed a civil rights case alleging that black applicants were systematically turned away. Trump's team countersued for a large sum, a tactic consistent with the attack, never apologize approach championed by his mentor, lawyer Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, a former aide to Senator Joseph McCarthy, was known for an unwaveringly combative style, filing countersuits, publicly dismissing accusations, and using the press to shape narratives. This fostered in Trump a belief that if you fight back loudly enough, controversies can be reframed or minimized. As history shows, the case ended in a settlement with no formal admission of wrongdoing, and Trump went on to expand his profile in real estate, casinos, and media. Over the decades, Trump's companies were involved in multiple bankruptcies, particularly in Atlantic City's casino sector, leading to unpaid debts for suppliers, but rarely resulting in long-term damage to Trump's own brand. He faced lawsuits alleging fraud, such as with Trump University, which led to a significant settlement, again without an official admission of guilt. Critics argued these episodes showed a pattern of leveraging the legal system and public relations to move past controversies. Yet, Trump's public persona as a business success frequently eclipsed these legal entanglements. From hosting a reality TV show to pursuing political ambitions, he displayed an exceptional knack for dominating headlines. When disputes arose over finances, employee wages, or misleading statements, Trump often dismissed them publicly as fake news or politically motivated. His skill in narrative control meant large segments of the public either supported him fervently or chalked up scandals as media bias. The result? Many allegations made headlines briefly but didn't permanently tarnish his standing among loyal fans. When Donald Trump entered politics, he pivoted from being a private mogul to a public official. During his presidency, he navigated investigations and impeachment proceedings that, in other circumstances, might have ended a politician's career. But again, the unwavering support of a sizable voter base and his constant presence in media helped shield him. Even after leaving office, he remains influential, underscoring how accumulated power and dedicated followings can overshadow controversies, at least in the eyes of supporters. Roman Abramovich is another telling case, albeit from a very different environment, post-Soviet Russia. Reports suggest that his entrepreneurial activities included questionable ventures in the 1980s and 1990s, during a time of enormous upheaval. Some accounts allege fuel diversion while serving in the Soviet military, as well as a 1992 incident involving a shipment of diesel fuel, though Abramovich denied wrongdoing and was never formally charged. While these events remain a subject of debate, the fact that they did not result in lasting legal consequences reflects the chaotic transition-era environment in which he operated. Abramovich's rapid ascent to wealth is frequently linked to Russia's infamous loans for shares privatization program in the mid-1990s. During this period, state-owned industries were sold off at well below their market value, often to well-connected businessmen. By acquiring a major oil company at a fraction of its estimated worth, Abramovich cemented his status among Russia's wealthiest oligarchs. Critics labelled the process unfair and possibly tainted by political favoritism. Nonetheless, Abramovich emerged unscathed in legal terms, attributing his success to legitimate deals within the free market chaos of that era. To many observers outside Russia, Abramovich's name truly became known in 2003 when he purchased Chelsea Football Club in England. By pouring substantial funds into the team, financing marquee players and development, he transformed Chelsea into a globally competitive powerhouse. This transformation recast him from mysterious Russian oligarch to philanthropic sports benefactor in the eyes of many soccer fans. Media coverage increasingly emphasized the club's trophies and high-profile signings rather than scrutinizing how Abramovich's initial fortune was acquired. When questions arose over his past or links to the Kremlin, Abramovich frequently invoked legal avenues, sometimes suing authors or media outlets he believed had misrepresented him. Over time, his public image stabilized as that of a low-profile billionaire heavily involved in sports, despite periodic accusations or sanctions levied by various governments. In effect, the success of Chelsea overshadowed decades-old controversies, illustrating again how attaining a certain level of power and prestige can reshape the narrative. Donald Trump's story and Roman Abramovich's story share a key thread. Both leveraged wealth, connections and continual media presence to manage or negate the impact of their past controversies. They achieved status to such a degree that any allegations or lawsuits, even those taken seriously by investigators, did not irreparably harm their legacies among supporters or beneficiaries. Control of narrative, whether through direct media engagement, as with Trump, or strategic acquisitions, as with Abramovich, managing public perception is central to overshadowing earlier accusations. Law and PR. Both figures use legal maneuvers and PR strategies to handle investigations or lawsuits, leading to out-of-court settlements or narratives that deflect blame. Public support. By building fan or voter loyalty, Trump's political base, Abramovich's Chelsea supporters, each cultivated a cushion of goodwill that mitigated criticism. Looking back at the Machiavellian adage that results can justify methods, we see a modern echo in these two stories. Their trajectories exemplify how power, whether derived from wealth or political office, can help protect against long-term repercussions. However, this phenomenon raises enduring questions. 1. Accountability. If high-profile controversies rarely lead to full accountability, does it create a double standard where everyday individuals cannot escape even minor legal consequences while the powerful walk free? 2. Public trust. When figures retain broad support despite serious allegations, does it erode faith in institutions or the rule of law? 3. Moral ambiguity. History shows that simply achieving success or popularity does not confirm innocence. Rather, it underscores how narrative and alliances can cloak wrongdoing. Yet there is also another angle. In some historical cases, leaders who once seemed untouchable eventually faced legal or public reckoning. The conversation around Roman Abramovich's ties to the Kremlin, for instance, escalated when geopolitical events changed. Similarly, Donald Trump faced impeachment proceedings and ongoing legal scrutiny that may shape his legacy over time. Power shields individuals until or unless circumstances shift. The stories of Donald Trump and Roman Abramovich remind us that in many cases, all your sins will be forgiven once you have achieved power, at least in the short term or in the court of public opinion. By examining their paths alongside historical examples, we observe how a loyal following, strategic media management, and influential allies can overshadow or recast prior controversies. Whether this dynamic is ultimately fair or fosters dangerous impunity remains open to debate. History suggests that power's absolution is not always permanent, but as long as fame, fortune, and influence hold sway, the failings of the powerful can be overlooked or reframed as brilliance. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, hit subscribe and like, or don't, I don't really care. Stay curious, stay aware.